I'm sorry, I went a step beyond what you were talking about, more on the physical side, but okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Is Ross here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, I don't know. You touched on a whole bunch of points. The one was creation was spoken into existence. There's several cultures that say it was sung into existence,
Yes.
and that there were three songs involved in that. And because of, I'm still working it out too, because this is so, it's recent and new to me, the way the thinking, but three songs were sung and all of existence came into, well, all of physicality, if you will, came into existence. What that still comes down to in essence is song is sound, which is vibration, which is energy, which is just it's essentially saying we are a, I can't really do it justice the way I try to explain it, but I'm going to try. Because sound and vibration happen, you've seen how they put certain material in a container, whether it's oil or clay or whatever. They play a sound and you get these forms, shapes that look like land or vertical beings, whatever, right?
Mhm.
And I tend to think that we are that. That is what we are. We are those vibrations that we see there. Okay. We have a consciousness, we have an awareness. You were talking about that. And it's more like we have a physical presence. God, this is so hard to explain. Physical existence, but we really don't exist per se. It is God's energy that is within us, his life force that is within this manifestation of what looks to be physicality. Do you understand? I'm trying really hard to get this in words. If
They,
it weren't for the sound and the vibration causing what we perceive as physicality,
uh,
okay, go
I
ahead.
might have a little more to add to that, because yeah, I think I thought a lot about stuff like that too, in the past. Still do. Um, the reality is there's none beside him. There is only the creator. Now we got to take out when we say creator, let's forget up physicality for a moment. Let's go, let's say it's beyond thought. There's something out there beyond ourselves. We know that. So in reality, we're fragmented pieces of the creator that is manifested into creation to fulfill certain missions, to bring everything back to its original state. Does that help?
That's a good part, a good way to start it, because yes, if there were not the creator, we would not exist, or
Right.
we would not have a an existence, if you will.
Right. And we don't exist apart from.
Correct. The one of the expressions is God is the universe. Okay. the universe is in motion. Motion creates sound. Sound is energy. So, in essence, because there is a moving universe that surrounds us, that's what causes us to to perceive ourselves. So in essence, one of the expressions is the art and the artist are inseparable. Because God exists
Well,
and does what God does, we exist. Therefore, there is nothing but God. We're just manifestations.
we could go a step further, Ross. And like I said,
Please.
the word mission before, like this universe was created before 6,000 years ago, and only the soul came down and indwelt mankind 6,000 years ago. So up to 6,000 years ago, we had no mission. We became just part of, we'll call it nature. So all the living creatures and living whatever, and we know that soil has a soul. We know that vegetation has a soul. We know that um, the animals have a soul, and we're also part animal. So we had that soul. That's the life force within us to do our thing, for animals to do their thing, for vegetation and for soil to do its thing. Everything has a life to it. So it's all God. So it wasn't until 6,000 years ago where we were given a soul to start the transformation of this universe into what it was supposed to become. So he permitted us to manifest in our own way, but how do I say this? I apologize. I'm like you, Ross. I'm
Oh,
searching for words, and I'm trying, and
it's tough.
it's tough because we're using English, I guess. But our physical manifestation is the mission we chose to perform. And if we don't succeed at this time, the next time we'll have to try. We have to keep trying until it succeeds. But it's guaranteed because since God is the ultimate, he only divided us up so that we could not challenge him or go against his will. So his will be carried out in the physical. See, when I look at they talk about the sin of Adam, I don't view it as a sin. I view it as a sin in terms of physicality. In other words, hey, I like the world the way it is. The serpent loves it like this. He doesn't want anything to change. Oh, now you're an outsider coming in trying to change things, and now you're sinning. Well, who are we really sinning against? We're sinning towards God, or we're sinning towards the creation and its messed up situation. Because a lot of times I'll sit back and say, I cannot stand this world. But unfortunately, I created this world. I was part of creating this world. Now I have to be part of the solution to the world.
Well, that's part of what I'm looking at too. The world doesn't need fixing. Okay,
We do. We do need the fixing. I agree. But that's what I mean by
we
world.
do.
People. I mean the people need fixing. I don't mean that we have to restore forest land. I don't mean that. I'm talking about
True.
here,
It's just
where we start manifesting here.
the world got along just fine before we got here, and it'll do just fine after we leave.
George Carlin. Yep.
Sharing of on the word ger, which consists of Gimel and Resh.
Yes.
Um, what if this was just an energetic formula and if it has been assigned a specific group of people to convey a sense of elitism, what if it's just an energetic formula, a general energetic formula that can be ascertained in in everybody's lives? Um, of course, my understanding of the letters is not very traditional, um, but um, I'm breaking it down, and it seems to not be pointing to any specific people group, but
Right.
is an energetic formula that can operate, that is operative within the whole universe and within people in general.
Kabbalah treats it as like an external type thing. In other words, externally means everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The only way you can separate yourself from the world is to transform yourself internally. So externally, yeah, I mean, you could be anybody. You could also say at the same time is a stranger could be somebody who's trying to become familiar with something, is curious about something,
Absolutely.
but has to make a decision. Do they go internal or do they remain where they're at? So you could call it a crisis of decision. Could you look at it that way, Tom?
Yeah, I'm just pondering it. It's just, yeah, it just seems that there's been many foreign ideas that have been interjected into that particular formula, and it's a travesty because it really is not, according to my perspective, and it's just my perspective of the letters. It really clearly is not pointing to any specific group of people at all,
Right.
but it really, I mean, Aleph, Aleph, Bet, and Gimel. I mean, the Aleph descends into a container, any container, and yet the movement of that energy, that power, that strength is obviously going to be suspended and reduced to a particular container, but it's awfully obviously going to create a specific movement once it gets into the container. And so and was really uncontrolled until it meets Dalet, which is a form of resistance, an open door to that movement. So then Gimel, Ger, being Resh, it seems to me to be, Gimel seems to be an archetype, and an archetype of that movement, but that general sense of movement which is going to meet resistance in Resh, which is Resh Yod. Is it Yod? Yeah, Resh Yod and Sheen is going to affect cosmic movement. Is affecting cosmic movement in the cosmos and then also within existence. So if one aligns himself with the Aleph and the power of the Aleph moving in containers, it's also moving containers in existence, and and it involves the whole movement of the whole cosmic container, which is Resh. It seems to me, just energetically speaking, that it's not pointing to any specific group of people, like you say, but it's pointing to a general movement on a cosmic level and in existence, Yod, of that power, that archetypal power of Gimel. Now, I realize that I'm kind of speaking in Yiddish in a sense, with clarity, but I'm responding to your message, David, of it not being a specific people group, but it's really a formula of Hashem's movement
Well,
general. And I feel like I could find that in quantum mechanics.
so so you could say that Ger is being mislabeled.
Yes,
In other words, they're calling the people who are interested in becoming internal, joining Israel, and they're forcing them to become Ger external. In other words, a resistance. You have a resist. See, when I see Raish, I'm looking at the character itself. I'm obviously looking at a lower level than you. I see a forehead and I see a thick, stubborn forehead. And the Gimel means that the person themselves is leaning towards or submitting themselves to that resistance, to that stubbornness. That's
yes.
the way I picture that word in terms of its characters. And that's what I see. So I see it differently than you, but I mean, both correct. It's just a different perspective of the same thing. Um, so it's like the deep state, how it likes to it's a thief, it's a criminal, but it likes to call the people who aren't thieves and criminals so that nobody knows who the thief and the criminal is, so they can push it away from themselves. So calling a people the Ger or Ger group or we are Ger is really saying identify with this resistance to becoming internally love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. Person. That's the way I'm seeing it. It's like no, you're putting a fence, and I guess that's maybe what it meant by Jesus was saying you'll strain a gnat. It's thread of a needle, going through a needle.
It seems to be that you're the resistance that is there because Resh is made up of Yod and Sheen, and Yod is made up of Vav and
Right.
Dalet.
Right. You're going by the spelling of the name of the character.
Yes,
I'm
and
going,
and
I'm going by
all
I'm going by
that.
the shape and image of the character.
Yes, and all of the letters that are in every particular character make a holographic image of the whole. And so to study the inherent aspects of those two letters, Ger and Resh, will lead you into and Resh, of course, is Yod, and Yod is Vav and Dalet. I mean, it'll lead you into a formula and an understanding of an energetic sequence leading from Gimel, which is an archetype, but is extending itself towards our existence and towards cosmic movement, Sheen. It really is
Oh,
a phenomenal equation.
so that would explain why sometimes they'll take God's name and they will spell it out with the names of each character. So rather than being four characters, it becomes 12 characters.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. And the
Gotcha.
problem with interpretation is so shallow and it doesn't take into consideration all of the elements that make up that particular character because it all is building. And if you don't have a picture of all the levels of a character, you're absolutely going to recognize and interpret it from a modern sense or interject an idea into it that really is not there. And thus you'll end up with divisions and partiality and yeah, well, you know all of that. You've been sounding the alarm and it's elitism, it's a partiality, and it's just all there in plain sight.
Yes. Yes. So